So I've got Chris King, who's from East Suffolk Council, who's also sort of the design guru and the East of England place advocate, who is going to kick off and talk about the sort of the more macro scale. Richard Eastham from Feria, Urbanism, who's going to talk about the art and science and sort of bringing those two Venn diagrams together in terms of collaboration. And Charlotte Norman, the founding director of Area Landscape, who's going to talk about the quay that's just Stokebridge Wharf, that's literally 2 minutes walk from where we are now, and is worth having a look at to see the project and try and understand the complexities at a very local scale. So without further ado, over to you, Chris.
Good morning, everyone. Let me just get myself in order. So I thought I'd start with a bit of a right bar. We're in Suffolk, sunny Suffolk. I'm a Suffolk boy as well, but I just wanted to kind of give a nice warm welcome from the wider county, as well as Ipswich as well. We're very humbled to have a national conference in the little corner of east of England. So we're really appreciative of you attending this event, and it also shows a support for this area of the UK as well. But I'm Chris King. As Rob said, I'm a lead on design and placemaking at East Suffolk Council. Also run a team of 22 specialist officers, from ecologists, arborists, designers, heritage officers, etc., etc. As well as that, I help manage the Suffolk Design Initiative, which I'll touch on shortly, and also the place advocate for the MHCLG East of England Place Network as well. So I get to speak to a lot of private and public sector people, planning officers, designers, architects, urban designers, community groups, councillors, you name it, often in the same room, individually, often trying to bite my ear off about something. But today I'm going to give you a little brief tour of sort of what are the challenges that we face, which aren't just Suffolk related. These are more national pieces, and probably won't be a surprise to 99.9% of you in the room as well. But we'll also kind of go into the work that we've been doing in Suffolk to kind of help unpackage those as well. Some good examples, bad examples, some that are still trying to find their feet as well. And then, yeah, lastly, as Rob said, try and give you some lessons, a bit of encouragement, and see how things can go from there as well. Apologies, I didn't realise my presentation would be as big as a house. So, so some of these images are quite big, some are quite bold, some bright colours as well. So just be mindful of that. But we can start off with a little bit of honesty. I think we are working in a system that doesn't work. We know that full in, full out. But I think we need to also be very honest about the people that work within the system. It's us as an industry, and it's all of us as individuals as well that really are the problem in terms of making places happen. Not just planners or developers or politicians. It's a collective group to kind of get better places that come forward. Because when collaboration and relationships break down, it's not us personally that gets affected by that. It's the communities that we are building for and the places that we want to create. They're the victims at the end of the day. And this is what it looks like. Thank you, Spider-Man. We have planners pointing at developers, developers pointing at planners. We have politicians pointing at the system. And then we have the communities pointing at all of us going, what is going on? Why can't we create these places that we desperately need? We've all been in those sort of meetings. I have. It's pretty much part of my job description now, where you sit there and the finger pointing starts, and it escalates and it snowballs, and you think we're not going to get anywhere here. It's a dead-end conversation, and we're back to square one. So a little bit of a question is, maybe it isn't whose fault is this, who should be leading this. It's probably more, how do we work together to get better outcomes for the people that we're creating places for. So, as I said, Suffolk isn't unique. We got multiple reports that kind of really steer this. The Place Alliance one is one that we love to kind of reference back to, and something that we kind of love to use in our discussions going forward as well. But at the end of the day, the UK is perceived as a mediocre place, particularly focused on housing developments. What can we do to better that as well? At the same time, we've been told to build, baby, build, and we're under pressure of delivering more and more houses. And the truth is, well, the question that's posed to us from a local authority perspective is it quantity you want or is it the quality you want? And that really frustrates me because those two should never be traded off with one another. They should always come forward first. If it's quantity you want, we're just going to get numbers on Excel spreadsheets and we're not going to get the places that people deserve to live in. The problem is we're stuck in our little cliques as well. From a local authority perspective, we're very defensive, and I'll hold our hands up. We're trying to defend and promote design as much as we can. And from a developer's perspective, it can be seen as sort of a cynical approach as well. They have ideas and aspirations and big plans, but often these two clash when we go forward. And at the end of the day, quality is the casualty. So in East Suffolk and Suffolk sort of wider as well, we've been doing quite a few bits on this. This wasn't 2025, it was 2024, so it's pretty much almost to the day that we hosted the East Suffolk Design Forum. And kind of when I was creating this presentation, I kind of thought this has only been a 12-month period, so I think it's great that the kind of the work that we'll be presenting today is really kind of getting some traction in terms of what we want to do. But typically, within a local authority, we got dragged along to developer forums, left, right, and centre. I don't know if anyone here has been before, but yeah, typically talking about numbers and viability, never about places, quality, or outcomes of these areas as well. So within East Suffolk, we wanted to kind of flip that a bit and host a space for local professionals, developers, councillors, planning officers to come together and talk about some of the challenges that they face working in East Suffolk. So we had a room full of about 80 people, which was quite impressive. We teamed up with REBA and the Landscape Institute as well. So we had a really great sort of pool of memberships that we were able to kind of really collate within that session as well. Did it solve anything? No, there was no real outcomes from that in terms of tangible stuff. But something did shift within this session. At the beginning of the session, we put up a poll and we said, whose responsibility is it for better places and to champion better design? I think it was about 86% of that poll, people in that room said it's local authorities' responsibility. And I've got to put my hands up and go, hang on a minute, I've got enough on my plate. Let's not be too hasty. So as the conversation went on, we started to understand what the other people's challenges were. What were the challenges from the private sector? What were the challenges from planning officers? What were the challenges that councillors were facing in those day-to-day discussions with the general public as well? By the end of it, we repeated the poll, and more or less that kind of came right down, and it was a collective insight to what we should be doing. People were offering study tours for planning officers. We were offering chances for architects to come in and sit in a planning office. I don't know how exciting that would be. But there was that opportunity to share, support, and really take things forward from there. So with REBA and the LI involved as well, they thought this was great, and it was great. So they twisted my arm and said, let's do it bigger and better. So we scaled it to a county-wide event in May under the guise of the Suffolk Design Festival in 2025, in May, sorry. So Suffolk Design, I think it was coming in at the right time. So Suffolk Design was, or is, an initiative of partnerships, all the local authorities coming together as a partnership across Suffolk to drive better placemaking and having a common theme and a common principles that we can drive forward as we go forward. At that time, we just launched our website, suffolkdesign.uk. So this was a resource hub for officers to kind of access all the relevant design material. We had free events on there, advertising events from the Urban Design Group, through to REBA, etc., and as well as events that we were hosting. We were able to host a Suffolk Design Fest. I'll start again. The Suffolk Design Review panel on there as well, which was great. So we thought it was great to kind of lump this together and really take that forward. So we had 180 people attend. But the way we approached this event was that it was a 50-50 split. 50% of the people in that room were private sector, 50% in the room were public sector. We had a balanced voice within the room to really have some honest discussions. We heard from heads of planning, architects that worked within the district. We had Matthew Carmona from Place Alliance, and we had Anna Rose from a planning advisory service as well, to kind of really give honest, open, different scaled approaches of the challenges that each sector face. We had workshops, we had a student exhibition, and we had panel discussions, and it really created a real good buzz. And I think the next day I got back to my inbox and I had an email from a developer. I don't know whether it was kind of scathing or they were mad or whether it was encouraging, but they said that their project architects had attended the festival and they've come back and they wanted to redesign 4 of their schemes from scratch, which I thought was great. This is we've really sort of injected some enthusiasm and some inspiration into these people where we could get better outcomes. So that was a great takeaway in that sense. But also, we were kind of faced within a lot of these sessions and also discussions that we have within the local authority is we're poised to defend design, well-designed places or beautiful places, but we're quite limited in terms of the resource and the backing from, say, the NPPF or any local policies to kind of really give that a good umph in pre-app discussions. So we wanted to kind of make design more accountable within East Suffolk. So we ran the place review, which was completed in February this year. So this was a report that we compiled with the help and support of the planning officers within East Suffolk as well. We reviewed 21 sites over the past 15 years. We scored these sites. We undertook land budgets to understand what land was working, how much that land allocation was deemed acceptable. We interviewed architects, landscape architects, developers. We undertook our design skills audit again within the planning authority to understand where knowledge gaps were, where skills were needed, and where people's confidence levels were in terms of pushing back on poor design. This was all brought together to kind of create a very sort of data-driven evidence piece that we as a local authority could almost hang our hats on, use clear case studies, use clear data that came from these studies to push back. But we saw within there a huge range of sort of qualities that we had across the district, some scoring 80+%, others 20%, all using the same policies and at the time the same MPPF in the same locations. So there was something quite amiss here. So it was a great way to kind of really bog down on that. We could keep applying those data sets, health and well-being, etc., to really understand those sites even more. But I have a personal life as well outside of work, so maybe for another day. So collaboration needs structure as well. Suffolk Design was very much an inward-looking initiative. We were there to kind of serve planning officers, support local authorities. But over time, from the East Suffolk sort of design forum through to the festival and through to some of this work that we were doing and having these conversations, it wasn't, this initiative wasn't really sitting too well for us. We needed to kind of open this out into more of an outward-looking initiative and invite people in to contribute to this as well. So change doesn't happen in just one-off events, so we needed to keep momentum, which we were finding quite challenging to do. So we are setting up the Suffolk Design Cooperative in the next 2 months. This is a way of bringing together the private sector and public sector into Suffolk Design, using Suffolk Design as a sort of a middleman to kind of foster and challenge these discussions going forward. Be free to join, but all we want is people's time to contribute to events, whether that's attending, presenting, hosting workshops, events, site visits, etc. It's about bringing 2 different sectors together to have the shared sort of common knowledge and momentum behind that as well. For councils, it means that we're not doing this alone. We have the support and we have the partnership with the people that work within our districts. For developers and consultants and the design industry as well, it's recognition and it's being able to get involved as a critical friend and help influence design policy and guidance as it comes forward as well. So some of the sort of the lessons that we've kind of taken away from this, and again, 12 months seems such a short amount of time, but I'm really proud of kind of the people within this room that have kind of helped bring that together. And I'm really excited to kind of see what happens next year. We'll be repeating the festival and hopefully have a bigger cooperative as well going forward. But again, it's the cliches, talk earlier, not later as well. And that was a key thing that we were finding, particularly in a shared room of people from multiple sectors. Creating spaces. If you're part of a REBA regional event or urban design regional event, invite your local authority along. I went to the one in London the other day, and hardly any sort of any people sort of invited LPAs into those conversations. To bring them on board, they had the local knowledge, they understand the local politics, they're able to kind of unlock these sites and help speed up processes as well. Be transparent. Local authorities, I think, we need to be quite honest in terms of what good design looks to us as a local authority. Design codes are starting to help that, but we need to set that out early. Otherwise, it's just a guessing game for other professionals like you as well. But likewise for applicants, set out your stall. What are your constraints? What are you dealing with? Is it viability? Let's talk about this early and we can work together to kind of help resolve these go forward. And as I said, evidence builds trust. We're able to have quite constructive discussions now around the quality of design, where we've got case studies, we've got information and data to back up our clauses. It's not just our thoughts and our opinions or what planning officers think looks pretty or looks nice. It's actually data-driven and evidence-based as well, and it really creates movement in terms of what we are wanting going forward. And then lastly, just really a big encouragement to kind of look for more collaboration across the sector, and I think we need to see more of it. From my perspective, and being involved with this, I think we can see more and more come forward. We have better relationships with REBA, the Urban Design Group, the Landscape Institute. These are really positive changes compared to maybe 5 years ago. So I'm really pleased to kind of see those sort of those goalposts changing, but don't reinvent the wheel. We in Suffolk have done a few approaches, we've built some tools, we've done some reports as well, and I know other local authorities are doing something similar as well. So please use our documents, there's some links there down, it shouldn't look like that, but some QR codes down there as well to kind of use our information, use our data, amend it, adapt it. I know Graham here, Graham Moore, has worked with us as well to kind of repeat some of these polls and audits as well within your areas. So the real shift really comes from linking efforts and working together across the country, not in these sort of silos. And I think local authorities are quite guilty of that as well. So less Spider-Man pointing and more placemaking. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. That was really inspiring. I mean, like with all the presentations today and tomorrow, probably we need 4 times as long to properly unpick it, and it's hard to get across in 15 minutes of the work that you've done, but it's sort of inspiring in terms of the perceptual positioning of kind of understanding the different points of view, but then actually having data and then sort of working through that and bringing people on board and sort of winning hearts and minds. So thank you for sharing the story. Richard, over to you.
Thank you, Chris, and also thanks to the session that kicked off this morning with Nikki, Matthew, and the others on that, talking about young people. Yeah, I'm Richard Eastham. I'm an urban planner, urban designer, and I'm going to talk about several things in this presentation. I'm going to jump around between different projects to sort of illustrate how we've done things, but 2 of the things are about a process that begins with young voices, and also this thing that I'm concerned about, that not all young people are the same age, because you often hear about developers or councils that said they've consulted with young people, but there's a world of difference between an 8-year-old and a 16-year-old, which we'll come on to. Designing a collaborative process, and Chris just made a great point there about collaboration needs structure, and I really agree with that, and I want to talk about some of the structures and the preparation that goes into making a really good collaborative process as well. And working with a citizens panel, which is something we've been doing in the last couple of years, actually, and how we think that's a really valuable tool to use, as well as other types of consultation. And then the last two topics, walking tours that we're using a lot. We have done it historically, but using those to try and work with local people to see the things at first hand. You really can't beat standing in front of a building that's maybe not as popular and trying to work out why. And also co-creation processes right in the heart of a town centre. So they're the sort of 6 topics, and I'm going to move around to talk about how we've done it. And as Rob said at the beginning, trying to conclude with some lessons learned on that. The collaboration needs structure. I've been doing some sort of business development and branding work recently, and we've been reflecting back on projects that we've worked on, and to see if there's any common themes. And the dotted grid that we use on our website and in other material, it sort of represents that analytical formula investigation, a slightly sort of scientific angle to things that you need to prepare and so on. But on the other side, we've got this sort of people's emotions, people's feelings, their imagination, and creating space in that dotted grid for different types of processes that can really unlock people's abilities to share things. And those two sides we try and bring to all of our projects. And when we put all those techniques together, we put this little sort of flow diagram. As a commercial consultancy, we're working with clients that want to get a project from the start to the finish. So there is a certain linear route that we take with it. But some of those projects, some of those techniques are qualitative, some are quantitative, some can be both, and we're really keen to use variety. And also the way we put that together, it reminds us of those games that kids have with the electric buzzer, and if it buzzes, you go back to the beginning. We'd really like to make an actual one of these if we could. So there's a sort of we'd like to have a certain playful approach to things, and this diagram tried to capture that. I'm going to start in Fordingbridge, which is in Hampshire. It's a market town, if anyone knows it. We work with a fantastic graphic designer, Amber Hardy, produced this great poster. I was down in the town, took a photo of the River Avon, and a swan happened to perfectly sail by at the perfect time, and that became the sort of icon for the poster. But the first thing we were doing in March this year in Fordingbridge, we worked with the schools. And on the left-hand side here, we've got Fordingbridge Junior School. In the middle is Burgate Secondary, and on the image on the right is the sixth form at Burgate. And on the left-hand side, in the morning, we work with the primary school, the junior school, and we asked them about their happiest memory in Fordingbridge. The Chinese takeaway came up a lot. Fast food and kids. And then we also gave the junior school 2 gold coins, actual gold, plastic gold coins, and asked them to spend the first coin on something that mattered to them, and the second coin on something that mattered to the community. And there were some interesting differences, but also some common ground. And what we then did, we had the morning with the primary school, we packed up the kit, and we went up the road to Burgate, and we gave the secondary school, the primary school's work to mark their homework. And it was quite a nice thing to pass it on. And they went through the primary school results and agreed with it, and they marked their homework, and then they added their own information, and then we took it to the sixth form and passed it on to them. So the sixth form were then marking the other groups and sort of building this information. And we really like the idea of younger people, older young people, and 16, 17-year-olds doing their A-levels to sort of collaborate. And it goes back to my point that not all young people are the same age. Hannah, on the left-hand side of that image, we'll come back to Hannah because she got involved. All of the work, we then produced this fantastic sort of parish map, and the work of Common Ground, an organisation, Angela King, Roger Deakin and others have done these parish maps about 30 years back now, and they're quite a common thing. And we create a collage of the work from the junior school. In May, we ran our first public consultation with adults, and that phrase, the adults in the room. When the adults turned up in the room, they were greeted by this and all the other work the children had done. So the children were there first. And it was just a quirk of timing, really, that we worked with the schools first, but we would definitely do that again, because by the time the adults got into the room, their preconceived opinions and their grumble. Old people are terrible, aren't they? They just complain about things, and the kids are so brilliantly ambitious and sort of innocent about what they want to do, the room was already positive off the back of this sort of work. And we can see in the bottom left there the gold coins. So the adults were immediately responding to and engaging with young people's work from the very beginning, which was great. So we had this sort of very childlike drawing, but then Hannah and her fellow student Lydia, over their summer holiday, did a great bit of mapping work for us, which we digitized and turned into this land use map for Fording Bridge, looking at vacant units, clusters of retail, and the geography class at Burgate have really got involved in this. And this has formed a core part of the neighbourhood plan evidence base, and it's been really great working with those different age groups in different ways, but it's still young people's voices that have been really amplified through the process that we designed for them. Waterlooville, just north of Portsmouth, just moving on, again, young people here, another great graphic bit of work from Amber for her design for the project. And yes, Play-Doh and felt pens. But this was a group from Springvale School. We'd worked with the children in the classrooms in the beginning of this year. I think we'd worked with over 180 children of different ages. And one group came along to the venue, which we'll talk about later. And they were fantastic. And we asked them to produce little models of what would make Waterlooville Town Centre better. And here's some of the results. On the top left, the yellow, very abstract sculpture was from an 8-year-old, and it was a shelter for homeless people. And he's an 8-year-old, and he's already aware of these social sort of challenges and conditions, and that was what he produced, which was really quite thought-provoking from all of us to see that that's what he came up with. We've got a swimming pool, and if you haven't recognized her already, down on the bottom left there's Taylor Swift with Nicki Minaj, obviously. But Taylor Swift became a sort of, the local paper picked up on it, so we've got cinema, indoor market, and a visit by Taylor Swift to boost the town. And she's not wrong either, the child that did that. If Taylor Swift came and did a little outdoor show in Waterlooville, it would be great. So these moments that the children were coming up with, that free-form idea of what can you build in Play-Doh, it became a sort of a thread that ran through it. And taking children's work really seriously, not just as a sort of afterthought, I think it's really important to do that. Bournemouth, the idea of representation in planning and citizens panels that I mentioned at the beginning. We've been collaborating with David Locke, the team, David Locke Associates, who are great. We've worked on a citizens panel in Spelthorne, and we're currently working with AR Urbanism, Amanda Reynolds' team, on a citizens panel in Totton, which has also been successful. But there's another one that involved us here in Bournemouth, and we get a little video here.
Good talk.
Speaker. Last Saturday I launched the first Bournemouth Town Centre Citizens Panel. This brings together 50 local residents with the council to co-create an action plan for our town. Will the Leader of the House join me in thanking the more than 250 people that applied and for the energy and ideas that participants are bringing to restoring pride in our town? And will she consider making time to debate how we can support more meaningful engagement in the future of our town centres and high streets?
Well, this sounds like a fantastic initiative in Bournemouth, a citizens panel, bringing people together to revitalise this great town that she represents.
So that was Jessica Toll, MP for Bournemouth West. There's Jessica. And when she became the first woman MP for Bournemouth and the first Labour MP for Bournemouth in July 2024, one of the things that was immediately of concern to her constituents and her was the future of the town centre. And a joint initiative from Jessica, but Millie Earle is the leader of BCP Council, the Lib Dem leader. Together they've initiated this citizens panel, and we've been meeting once a month since this summer. And a lot of it is about the perceptions of the town centre versus the reality and how we can get a more representative group involved in that. And we worked to understand the demographics of Bournemouth, and you'll have seen in that little video when Jessica raised it in the House of Commons that 250 people applied. The 50 that were successful, a blind selection, but matching these demographics, so that when we did assemble the 50 people in the room, it was a much more balanced initiative. And some of those voices that that the local newspaper has all you'll know them, the comments that you see on a local paper. That was actually not as significant because the panel was a much more representative group. And what we produced for the panel was a handbook. And in the handbook, there are lots of information about what powers do councils have, how are councils funded, who's responsible for the town centre. And that handbook was given out to all of those members that were on the panel in that first session. BCP Council, a little bit reluctant initially to engage with this, but the idea that they would find 50 people which they could communicate with, explain some of the limitations and what councils do has been really beneficial, and it's been a great success so far on this. And we've met on a Saturday afternoon, which has been a good time, and we've, that's me summarising things that they were doing, and it's been great for them to air their concerns, but also some of the more positive stories about the town centre that are not reaching the local press, are reaching one another in that forum, and that's been really positive to have that ability to do it. And the MP's powers are relatively limited. The council has also what it can and can't do. And the idea that the property owners, landowners, and others are being much more identified as some of the blocks to development that was not originally seen as the issue within the population in Bournemouth. And that's a photo we took. Not all 50 there, I should say, but Jessica in the middle there with Millie, and it's been a really great way to engage people in a different way to say maybe open door events where you get different people attending. Off the back of that, I've been asked to join, it's a new group, it's only just launched in August, the Representative Planning Group. And I know Louise Thomas-Later is talking about developers, and this is a cross-party group. There's Liberal Democrat leaders of councils, there's also another MP, Mike Reeder from Northamptonshire is on this, but developer groups as well. And they're interested in representative planning to try and understand that actually there's a quiet majority that is pro-development and for new housing that is not being heard. And the Citizens Panel has helped amplify some of those more positive voices. But I'm going to finish this talk going sort of back to the future into Waterlooville. And the developer sketches from the 1960s, 70s about Waterlooville as it expanded. It's north of Portsmouth where we'd worked, and you saw the children's Play-Doh models and Taylor Swift. And this is about bringing development back into the heart of town and walking tours, the two topics I wanted to talk about. Well, this is what it looked like, but it doesn't look like that now. It's really seen better days. But we worked on a multidisciplinary project to try and bring people into the process, a collaborative process. It's got wildlife, broken windows theory, but this photo was taken on the shortest day of the year in December, and when the sun catches the modernist architecture, it's got quite a nice glow to it. There's the old part of Waterlooville that also has a certain charm, and there's a really beautiful modernist church with stained glass windows, and that stained glass inspired what we did to an empty shop, which you'll see in a moment. Anyone, you can take photos like this around different towns in the UK, but we've got an aging population, getting around isn't easy. And that's how you leave the town centre to get back to where you live. It's trapped around a dual carriageway. One of the first things we did on this project was a series of walking tours. It was the winter time. Every time we organised a meet, we met at 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock. We did 27 of these. Every single time it was full, people were there. We were astonished that even on bad weather, cold days, local people wanted to take us around the town and show us what mattered to them. And this is my colleague Jade furiously writing, wrapped up against the cold, but there's something really important about making it known that what you're being told is being recorded. And Jade was like an old-fashioned newspaper reporter, writing everything down, and sometimes a member of the public would look over her shoulder and say, "Have you got that down?" And she said, "Yes, I have." And that was really important to reassure them that not only were they being listened to, but we were really recording what they were saying. And then the next slide is from someone who ran a Facebook group who'd been relentlessly negative about the town. And he attended one of our walking tours. And the next day, this is what he said. "I attended the walking tours this morning. Absolutely brilliant initiative, all received positively. Good ideas and interaction. It's a massive step forward, and it was excellent. Thank you." Now, when someone like that who has got a big following on social media can switch from being quite the process to being encouraging, it was fantastic because they listened to that voice more than us. And all that person wanted was to be listened to for an hour, which is what we did. But also throughout that, we were challenging some of the preconceptions and misunderstandings. For example, why are those shops empty? Why doesn't the council fill them? Well, the council doesn't own those shops. It's a pension fund. And why isn't the council repaired the... Well, that's the county council. It's not the district council. And we found so many times that the angry, frustrated voices just don't have the information. And things like the handbook we produced was really helpful in trying to demystify some of that. Another way we tracked the walks, I used a GPS tracker. So every one of our walks we mapped, and you can see the sort of heat map that comes out of that. Only one of the groups went across the dual carriageway at the top, you can see. It was quite a challenge to do that. And we walked around the back, but there's a certain sort of representation that we could create a really interesting visual from this. And throughout all of these walks, we were taking photographs and listening to people, and we could translate that into a really good, accessible map. And what was interesting about this when we produced it, the unhappy faces were very much about visible dereliction in the town, but the positive hearts and the positive experiences were often happening inside a building, community activities in the library or so on. So there's an interesting inside-outside perspective on Waterlooville community versus what you see as you walk around the streets. And you can see that dual carriageway barrier effect around the outside there. We also did Google Maps. My colleague Laura was working on evening events where we were mapping out, this was really helpful for people that couldn't attend the sessions in the daytime, or they had mobility issues that prevented them from walking around the town. This was a great supplement to that as well. So we really built up a lot of data around Waterlooville. One thing that we kept walking past were things like empty shops, and this one was very prominent, and we managed to get the landowner, the property owner, very supportive. They allowed us to open that up to create a hub for the next phase of the project. And inside, it's interesting because some of the teenagers we worked with remembered it when it was a shop selling computer games. So you can't see it in this photo, but we had a leaky roof, we had a bucket in one corner catching the drips. The shutter needed a hammer to make it shut at night, but we got access to this, and this is my quick Photoshop, the next one, what we wanted it to look like, and we managed to get it looking like that. If you just ignore the health and safety breach in this image, we did get this graphic put up. Again, Amber Hardy's great graphic became sort of very visual clue. And again, language matters. I was having a chat last night with Mark, actually, who's here today, about the word charrette, design charrettes, and what is it? So, Festival of Ideas, and I know that Chris had talked about his Festival of Design in Suffolk. This went up on the shop. We had the best part of a week there. The stained glass from the church, the graphic worked really well. It looked fantastic at night. We opened on the Monday evening, and the room was full almost immediately. A lot of the people on the walking tours knew about this. They came back, they brought friends and colleagues. And this was a multidisciplinary project where we had lots of practices involved. It was a very progressive timetable. We have here, like on the Tuesday, what we were talking about. We would make decisions at the end of that. We'd start again on the Wednesday, move through, and by the Thursday evening, we had a sort of sketch plan for the whole town. So the public were welcome at any point, but at any point they joined in, there was a certain topic under discussion. And there's the map. We had some teenage hoodies come in to see the work. There's Phil Deacon from Deacon Design, landscape architects, Alice, his colleague, talking about things as well. The Gemma Parish from Architecture PLB, that's me, sketching out what the town could look like in future, and the public working with us as well, and Paul Fazy pulling together that plan at the end of the week. And if you've got your leaflet, which you'll have got when you signed in today, you'll have that photo. That's the super widescreen version of the one in your leaflet, of me presenting at the end of the week the ideas that came forward. And I really like that photo, young and old in the room, sharing that experience of helping to co-create that. We had 7 weeks to turn all that around into a more considered set of proposals for the town centre. So in the same venue, we set up an exhibition. It was much more calm and collected. It didn't have the Play-Doh and the sort of chaotic creativity. But on the boards there, all the information translated. And what was great at this session in March was people that were with us in January came in and recognised where the ideas had come from and seen the translation between the sketches from the beginning of the year to the proposals towards the end. Yes, it was a really successful sort of translation from one to the other. So I'm going to finish on my lessons learned. The first thing is about young people treating children's work with respect, and the idea of respect is about investigating every drawing. What's in that drawing? Can you quantify it? We've looked at 150 children's worksheets, and you can actually make statistical analysis about what they're drawing and why they're drawing it. Variety, not everyone can read a map, not everyone can read text as easily, so having all of those different media available has been really important to us. The thing about urban design expertise, the experts in the room, I think it's really important to challenge public perception. I think there's a lot of co-creation where, well, the public said they wanted this, this, and this, so we're going to have to do it. But actually, the public can ask for things that just aren't going to work or aren't appropriate. And I think a lot of the work we've done when we've been walking around with the public is actually saying that, explaining why things happen and why they don't. And they're really curious about that. So I think that's important to challenge it. And again, the anger and frustration is often because they don't have that knowledge that perhaps we in the room have. And I think it's really important to share that as constructively and politely, but nevertheless to actually demystify things. The representative panel that we've been using in Bournemouth, Totton, and also in Spelthorne, that can really amplify unheard voices. And I think it's something I really want to do more of. And recording what people are saying, making it obvious that you're recording what's been said by a GPS map or that just in a notebook, that really can reassure people that they're being listened to. And finally, going back into taking the project into the heart of town like we did in Waterlooville was really important. That shop was such a visible metaphor for revitalising a town centre right in the middle. People were walking past and coming in the shop. That was really important too. And don't be shy of the details. The public, they were really curious about design detail. So the final exhibition had a lot of detailed drawings, but they were really well received. And the last bit, the walking tours allowed us to make that first contact with people. We invited them back in January for that Festival of Ideas. They gave their time. We invited them back again to the gallery. And that sort of connected repetition of the same people again and again that we're getting in the panel event. You're starting to get a cohort of people that know more. They can then share that with their friends and colleagues and neighbours. And it's really powerful to get a message from your fellow peers, your fellow citizens. So when you invite people back in, that process of dissemination is much more likely to happen. And that's it.
Thanks, Richard. I feel like the bad guy standing there, although I did sit in a place where I don't think I could catch his eye. I was going, oh, no, no.
When Rob stands up, you can't miss him.
I know, sniper's dream, I'm here again. Really interesting to hear that involving the community, but truly listening and then playing it back and really involving them over a period of time and having that time is really fundamental. Charlotte, over to you, because I'm conscious of your time, and I want to give time for questions at the end. So.
Thank you. So I'm one of those people who can't read text very well. So I've got 2 pairs of glasses and paper and this. So, right, let's try. Right, so I'm Charlotte Norman. I'm a landscape architect. I've been a landscape architect for the last 25 years. I've worked on a wide range of mostly urban projects. Before that, I would classify myself as a geographer, urban and historical geographer. I was a high street task force expert for a few years. I was a local government officer locally part-time a few years ago. I am part of the Essex and Suffolk Design Review panels. Before that, I was a teacher for a few years, and I'm the parent of 3 Ipswichians, 3 teenage Ipswichians. So I really loved this morning listening to the young people in the room. That was brilliant. Right, so I'm absolutely delighted to be talking to the conference here in my adopted hometown about an innovative local project. It's focused on a small neglected area next to Stoke Bridge, which is just within the site of the dance house, and Todd mentioned this morning. And it's now, or as of yesterday, it was open. It's connecting people to place physically and digitally through material design and augmented reality trail.
Stokebridge Wharf, as it's now called, and Dock Stories, which is the AR Trails name, is a modest but ambitious collaboration conceived and delivered by the bid, and that's the key point. So it's been funded by local partners, the local authorities, the borough and the county council, but designed and delivered by kind of quite a collaborative group of local designers and tradespeople. Its core aim is to reconnect people to overlooked heritage and to show how even a very small site can spark enthusiasm, local pride, and perhaps even engender new ways of thinking about place. For the bid to act as a client on a physical material public realm project is unusual, and we think it might even be unique. And that's really what makes part of this story interesting and why I wanted to talk about it today. It's been delivered in a very collaborative, agile and persistent way. The delivery, well, the whole project has been anything but simple, even though it's a very small site, and we've had to navigate quite complex legal, financial, technical hurdles. But what's made it possible is relationships. So there's been a really, really strong partnerships between all of the stakeholders and actors, old and new, and there's been a spirit of let's just try it. So a lot of this is down to the project manager, Kath Cockshaw, who you heard speak earlier, and what she called, when I asked her about it, a Blue Peter attitude. So when the temptation, and I was really guilty of this, was to say, well, that just won't work, you know, it's a bit jaded about various things. She said, well, why not? Why not try? So that approach, that very human approach, very persistent, human, agile, has helped us unlock all kinds of problems as we went along. And that's the story I want to highlight today. And I think I'm not really going to talk about the design because that should speak for itself, and time will tell. The real lesson I want to share here is that with determination, trust, good relationships, even small projects can open up big possibilities. So sorry, that's a long preamble. Here's the site. So Todd gave a really good introduction to Ipswich and the town centre. So hang on. Yeah, so just to orientate ourselves, that's the town centre. The white bit is the medieval core, the river, the waterfront where we are today. And the pop-out is Stokebridge and St Peter's Dock, so the dance house is just there in the top right corner. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Right, so the genesis of the project is quite interesting because there is a thread. I mean, Ipswich suffers a lot of the problems, as Todd mentioned this morning, as most post-industrial towns. And there are really thriving and successful aspects socially and physically about Ipswich. There's wonderful heritage and modern buildings, fantastic independent businesses. We've got a small but thriving arts and music scene. There's a book festival happening this week. Beautiful, beautiful parks. But it has a lot of social deprivation, the usual kind of problems, empty shops. We've got relatively low land values here. And there is that whole physical problem of disconnection because of large empty sites, big box retail, leisure parks, surface parking, and the roads. In 2018, the bid commissioned Allies and Morrison to look at ideas for restitching the town centre. The main theme of the Allies and Morrison work was to create a connected town, and that looked at physical and digital and narrative story connection. And they produced a really, really excellent report, which is sort of relating back to what Richard was just saying. It's quite non-technical, demystifying, it's very visual. It really, importantly, has very good visuals in it, so it's very accessible. And this is one of the kind of quite exciting images that they produced, which again, anybody in Ipswich would recognise this, and people did get excited about this kind of thing. I mean, there's a lot of negativity, as you find in all towns, but this kind of thing has had some traction, and I think what's happened next has kind of proved that this is a valuable process. Oh, I've just lost my slide. You did not come here for a history lesson about Ipswich, and I think, again, Todd gave a really good synopsis, but because one of the main aims of this project is connecting people with heritage and heritage of the waterfront, I just need to give a little bit more context. This beautiful, beautiful image is of Stokebridge and the town, and it was from a really recently discovered 16th century map that Henry VIII commissioned because he feared strategic locations were going to be attacked by the Spanish and the French, because Ipswich was wealthy and important. Medieval Ipswich was a port in the Hanseatic League, so we were trading with the Baltic in timber and wool, and we were shipbuilding and trading those, so it was wealthy and cosmopolitan. And as the oldest crossing point of the river, Stoke Bridge, which you can see here, and the adjacent docks and wharves, which you will have seen this morning, are, of course, central to the flow of people, goods, ideas, and prosperity of the town. So, a little bit more history. So, this is a beautiful etching, which is in the government's art collection, but strangely, very, very few people in Ipswich seem to have ever seen. And it's the Georgian port and town before the industrial transformation of the 19th century. And everybody who's seen this in Ipswich has been sort of captivated by it, because it's a very, very recognisable view of a very, very different town. You know, pre-industrial town. It's green, it's compact, and it's really got people talking. Hang on, I've skipped one. There we go. This is the wet dock that again Todd mentioned this morning, and at the time it was an absolute marvel of engineering. Apparently, it was the largest inland contained body of water in England at the time, so Ipswich was really booming from here on. But you know, as you can see, like many places, the port's moved downriver. We do still have a very important port in Ipswich, but you can't see it. And the waterfront here was really largely derelict and inaccessible from the 80s onwards, until I moved up here in early 2000s. You could just access the front of it. This building was quite a big, important catalyst in opening this up. Right, the last one on history. This is a really important photo for our project, because when we found this and we started to show it to people, again, it just really got people talking and really excited and really interested in what was there. You know, the dock's full of working craft and people and children, and it's, again, very, very recognisable, but such a difference from what's been there for the last certainly 20 or 30 years. So we've included this and the previous Georgian illustration as large physical prints in new signage on our site, and more about that later. So jumping back into the story of this project, which is where the kind of lessons come from. About 5 years ago, Ipswich Central, the bid, created a website called All About Ipswich to showcase local businesses in the town centre and on the waterfront. And then they decided to go a bit further. So they came up with a plan to create these digital historic vistas of some kind of concept, and trying to sort of bring to life some of these stories. So putting the human into it more. And on the back of that Allies and Morrison Connected Town visioning, the team at Ipswich Central started to develop that idea along with a plan to do some physical public realm improvements. So the idea was to create some sort of information point and viewing platform at that strategic kind of entry point to Ipswich, to the town centre and the waterfront at Stoke Bridge. So this visualisation was created by my friends, local architects, EDRM, at the time, to give a flavour of what that might be, and to get people interested in talking and to support funding bid and consultation, and kind of define the brief of what came next. So here's just some kind of early design work for what became a joint public realm improvements and augmented reality trail concept project. So the augmented reality trail part of this project has been developed by my friend, colleague James Lee Burgess, who's here from Urban Tech Creative, and we'll come back to that in a minute. And the idea is to improve the fabric of the wharf followed from that. So the digital came first, which I think is also quite unusual. So that there would be kind of a physical presence for this reality, for the AR project, and also, well, it's got a host of other benefits. So we got involved about 18 months ago to lead on that aspect of the project. So here are some stills, and it doesn't do it justice at all, and hopefully James can show you later, and there's a little bit of a taster at the end of what this is really like. But this is some stills from what's become, it's been called the Dock Stories app. It works on smartphones via QR codes. QR codes are embedded in the new signage at Stoke Bridge Wharf. And from there, you can follow the trail around the waterfront where characters pop up and appear in front of you, and they tell stories of their lives in the town and on the waterfront. A lot of detailed research has gone into creating the characters, and some of them are real, and some of them have been created with a bit of artistic license. The theme of all of them is Ipswich pioneers, and it's included we've discovered all kinds of interesting stories. Early photographers, kind of quite maverick photographers, migrant workers from all around the world. So it's blending stories, the tangible and the intangible, in quite a fun and intriguing way. So you're standing on real ground, but you're seeing and hearing realistic voices from the past. And please do speak to James. I'm sure he'd be delighted to talk to you about it more. So here's just one of the characters in a bit more depth. This is Captain Wes. He's fictional, but he's based on research into a real-life Thames bargeman, and he's narrated by the current skipper of the beautiful Victor you might have seen on the waterfront. It's usually moored there. So if this works, I don't know how it does work.
Hello, I'm Captain West, first man to take the helm of the Victor back in 1895. One of the finest Thames sailing barges ever built, and she was built right here in Ipswich.
Okay. There we go. Right, so that's the digital aspect doesn't really do it justice at all. This is the physical part of the project. So this is land adjacent to Stoke Bridge, which is basically what it was known as, or even Stoke Bridge, it's not the bridge. So this is just a couple of months ago. In fact, it was like this until probably 4 weeks ago. It's been like that for 20 plus years at least. So despite its kind of strategic, important location at the head of the docks and on the main route into the town centre, it's been a bit of a dumping ground for some kind of random bits and bobs. So it's not been a very welcoming place to linger. There was an old buoy with a kind of Where's Wally kind of livery. That's not its original livery. An old telephone box, a Victorian-style lamp column, and some quite badly vandalised signage, which at once was really interesting, and now you can't read. So, also importantly, it didn't have a name. It was just like a bit of land. So it was called probably officially the land next to Stoke Bridge, and people in Ipswich just said, oh, where the buoy is. Anyway, this is it. On Wednesday, yesterday, this was basically just before the Heras came down, so sadly not quite in time for the slides. But I'm not going to talk in detail about the design moves, because as I say, I think it just needs to speak for itself. But the key moves were basically just to clean it up, refurbish it, replace the furniture, provide some accessible interpretation signage, hence the artwork, and a way to access the Doc Stories app through the QR codes, and introduce some planting if possible. So it needed a name, it needed an identity. It already had a name, but everyone had forgotten it, so it was all on the old maps. And we've just, design-wise, we've tried to create as many positive visual, physical, narrative connections to the dock side as possible. So, it's simple industrial forms and materials that kind of hint at cargo. And the pine trees are not only iconically Suffolk, but they also make that Baltic connection with the Hanseatic League. So importantly, it needed to be modest and achievable in a very, very tight budget, and to make a project that could be managed by a client who's never delivered a building project before. So although it's simple, it is in the public realm, it is complicated technically. So I won't say any more about the design, but I'd be very happy to talk about it to anyone who's interested, or go over there. So this is kind of the nub of really my presentation, the journey to delivery, and what makes this a useful case study, I think, for the conference. So initiation, the bid set the challenge. How do we bring heritage to life in a modest way? The bid has never been a client for a construction project. The land was owned by, we've got a multi-tier local authorities. Ipswich Borough Council own the land. They didn't know they owned the land, really. Suffolk County Council own assets on the land, the lighting. Suffolk County Council and Ipswich Borough Council provided funding through Towns Fund and other funds. CAF secured additional funding from the private developer of the housing project across the road. So the budget in total for all of the works was about £50,000 for the physical works. So there's nothing. On the really plus side, the bid could be much more agile than, say, a local authority client. But there are legal and technical challenges. So although they're a legal entity and they could enter into a contract, we needed to help them to define and simplify that process so that it could be bona fide, you could manage risk, but also make sure it wasn't too unwieldy for a client like that and the contractor, because it's such a small value. So we regrouped with the Blue Peter attitude, and we wrote a bespoke, simple building contract. It was a bit hairy, but we did it, and we did that with the help of Burkitt solicitors. They also helped draft a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, to clarify the relationships of the parties, and then we managed a simple invited tender process with 3 local firms. So the key points about this are the design, modest, simple, wide consultation, but informal. It's been done in a very sort of, I say, agile, informal way, but we have talked to all of the civic societies, lots of people, public children, informally, and tested things out. Collaboration, sort of following on from that. Local businesses and trades, everything's been delivered locally. And lots of people have really gone above and beyond, actually, out of enthusiasm to see this happen. Hopefully they haven't lost money, but they have really, really gone above and beyond. And persistence and determination, particularly from the bid, absolutely key. This can-do attitude of like, well, why can't we just build something in the public realm? And that's especially the CEO, Lee Walker, project manager, Kath Cockshaw, and the chairman, Steve Florey. So they demonstrated that with a will, skillful relationship building, there can be a way. Don't need to talk about this anymore, but that's just the partners involved in this. And the point, really, the really important point is Ipswich Central, the bid, were the client for the whole thing from start to finish. So the wharf project is now complete. This, unfortunately, again, is just before the fence came down. The feedback we've had has been really, really positive. Ipswich is actually quite well known for being quite despondent and having quite a lot of negativity in pockets. But actually, it's been fantastic. And the landscapers who brought the trees in at the beginning of the week said they've never worked on anything where so many people had stopped them and said how much they liked it. And they include little kids and old people and all kinds of people. So that's lovely. And it showcases what a bid can do, harnessing local talent and enthusiasm, trying new things, including being a client in the real world for a real world building project, and blending digital and material innovation. So in terms of achievements, it's reactivated a forgotten waterfront corner. And we hope that that small wharf can become a catalyst, because it is very, very prominent in the town. It's created a new cultural and heritage experience, and there is potential to for future expansion of the trail, and the model could be repeated. So we'd really, the trail sadly isn't quite open, so hopefully people will come back when it is and experience it. So to conclude, in many ways, I think the project and the trail, the Stoke Bridge Wharf physical project and the Dock Stories Trail aren't just about new signage or some planting or a digital trail on the waterfront. They're about showing what can happen when you take a really modest idea but you stay agile and you build strong relationships. You're persistent, there's great collaboration, there's kind of just human relationship building, and you can turn constraints into opportunities, to use that phrase, terrible phrase, and that a small local project can really punch above its weight, potentially in terms of impact. So our hope is that this work encourages others to try to approach delivery with that same Blue Peter attitude, to see possibilities rather than barriers, and to remember that even in complex systems, real-world systems, that human connections and enthusiasm can be a powerful driver for change. And finally, there's a little video.
Hello, my name is Griff Rees-Jones.
Another local.
I live not far from Ipswich, so I'm a local. Over 1,500 years ago, after the Romans left Britain, a new settlement began to grow around a crossing point on the River Orwell. That crossing point was Stoke Bridge, and the settlement became Ipswich. Today, Stoke Bridge remains a key entry point to the town centre and the waterfront, from the south side of the town, for residents, commuters, visitors and tourists. But few who cross the bridge realise its historic significance. The Stoke Bridge Wharf project was founded by Ipswich Central to shine a light on the historic importance of the bridge, the harbour and the River Orwell, using augmented reality and an app called Dock Stories. Why not download the app now and immerse yourself in Ipswich's maritime past, brought to life by the voices of the people and pioneers who shaped history.
Thank you very much.